Before the competition starts, route setters and officials will determine the intended sequence for the route and assign scores to each handhold in the order they are intended to be used. This information is translated onto a route map that is used by judges to determine the score for each climber. Some holds on the route map will be marked with 2 scores. This means that the climber must match hands on the hold to be given the maximum score. For example, this hold is marked with 12 and 13. This means that if they use it with only one hand, they get a score of 12, but if they match on it, they get a score of 13. Each route is judged by at least one judge and assisted by a timekeeper. The role of the judge is to determine the highest hold that the climber controlled or used, ensure the climber uses any mandatory start or clipping holds, ensure the climber doesn't climb beyond a legitimate clipping position, ensure the climber clips all quick draws in order. The role of the timekeeper is to notify the climber when their 40-second preview period starts, notify the climber when they have 10 seconds left, notify the climber when their 40-second preview period has expired and they must get on the wall, time the climber's attempt, starting the timer as soon as they leave the ground, inform the climber of their time remaining when requested, stopping the timer as soon as they top, fall, or are called off the wall, notify the climber, judge, or both if the climber surpasses 6 minutes on the climbing wall. After an athlete's attempt, they are given a score determined by whether they topped the route, or if they fell, whether they controlled or used the last handhold. All scores are marked on the official route map. The highest score a climber can get is a top. In order to top the route, they must clip the final quick draw. Climbers can clip the final quick draw from any hold. It does not need to be the last hold on the route. If a climber falls from the last hold but does not clip the final quick draw, they cannot be awarded a top. When a climber does not top the route, they are given a score based on whether they controlled or used the hold they fell from. Controlling a hold means that the athlete was able to use the hold to control their position on the wall, but not to make any further movement. If an athlete controls hold 20, they will be given a score of 20 for the route. Here, the climber controls her final hold with her left hand. Even though her leg is swinging, she shows control by being able to readjust on the hold. Here, the climber controls her final hold with her right hand. She demonstrates control by using the handhold to help adjust her feet. Here, the climber controls his final hold with his right hand. Even though he reached up towards the next hold, he did so as he was already falling away, so he would only be awarded control of the right hand. Here, the climber controls his final hold with his right hand. Even though he was able to move his body upwards, to the next hold, he would have needed to move his hand toward the next hold to be awarded more than a controlled score. Using a hold means that a climber has demonstrated control of a hold and are using it to progress up the route. To be awarded a used or plus score for a hold, the climber must use the hold to significantly and positively move their center of mass to show a change in body position and move at least one of their hands to reach either the next scored hold along the line of the route or any hold that has been successfully used by another competitor. Using a hold is commonly referred to as plussing or getting the plus. If an athlete uses hold 20 but falls while moving towards hold 21, they will be given a score of 20 plus for the route. In this video, the climber would get the plus from her final left hand hold because she made progress towards the next hand. She would not be awarded the controlled score for her right hand because she did not establish control of the hold. Here, the climber would get the plus from the hold she matched. While she was able to touch the hold on the volume, she did not demonstrate control. This climber would get a plus score from his right hand hold, the lower of the two right hand holds. He cannot be awarded a higher score because he did not show control on the top right hand hold. This climber would receive a plus score from her high point on the left hand hold. This climber would receive a plus from his right hand on the red volume. Although it was quick, he showed control of the hold and showed positive progress towards the next hold before he fell. If a hold is marked with 2 scores, this means the athlete must match in order to get the highest score for that hold. There are 4 possible scenarios for scores on dual score holds. The climber controls the hold with the first hand but falls before they can bring the second hand over to match. The climber would receive a score of 12. The climber controls the hold with the first hand but falls while they are bringing the second hand over to match. The climber would receive a score of 12 plus. The climber controls the hold with both hands but falls before they can progress to hold 14. The climber would receive a score of 13. The climber matches hands on the hold and falls while progressing to hold 14. The climber would receive a score of 13 plus. Dual score holds can be tricky to judge if there are two dual score holds back to back. Let's assume this scenario. Hold 11 is a standard hold, hold 12/13 is a dual score hold, and hold 14/15 is a dual score hold. If a climber controls hold 12/13 with their first hand and either moves their second hand towards but does not control hold 14/15, or bumps their first hand towards but does not control hold 14/15, the athlete would be given a score of 12+, because the only hold they controlled was hold 12 and they successfully progressed from it. If a climber controls hold 12/13 with their first hand and manages to control hold 14/15 with either their first or second hand, they would be awarded a score of 14 because they successfully demonstrated control of hold 14, even though they didn't require matching on the dual score hold below to do so. If they fall, bringing their other hand up to match on the hold 14/15, they would receive a score of 14+. As climbers complete their route, mark the athlete's information directly on the route map. Depending on the event, the head judge may ask you to record their name or their bib number. To record scores, draw a horizontal line from the hold the climber achieved their score from and write in the athlete information. In this example, the climber's bib number is used to identify them. Climber 1 controlled but fell from hold 8. Climbers 2 and 3 used hold 8 but fell. Climber 4 matched and used hold 12/13. Climber 5 topped the route. Climber 6 matched hold 12/13 but fell. Climber 7 controlled hold 12/13 but only with one hand. Some holds are not intended to be used as hand holds and are not given a score. If two climbers use a non-scored hold to progress up the route and fall while doing so, then that hold will be given a score of 0.5 more than the value of the hold below it. If a climber falls while using a non-scored hold, then the judge must make note of this on the route map. Only when a second climber uses the same hold will the scores be changed on the route map. For example, the move from hold 15 to 16/17 is extremely hard. But one competitor successfully uses the footholds between those two holds to progress up the route, but falls before they can control hold 16/17. The judge would award a score of 15+, but mark on the route map that that climber used the foothold. If a second climber were to do the same thing, then that hold would be awarded a score of 15.5, and the two climbers who have so far used that hold would have their score changed from 15+ to 15.5+. Climbers must be in a legitimate clipping position at all times. A legitimate clipping position can be defined as one where the climber does not have their entire body above an unclipped quick draw, does have their entire body above an unclipped quick draw, but are in a position where they can clip the quick draw without using their feet to bring the quick draw closer to them, or the judge determines that the tallest competitor in the field could clip the quick draw, or is in a position that has been previously determined by the chief route setter to be legitimate. In this example, an unclipped quick draw is located between holds 12/13 and 14. This climber is in a legitimate position because their entire body is not above the unclipped quick draw. If they were to fall from here, they would receive a score of 15 because it is the last hold they controlled from a legitimate position. In this example, where the climber is higher up on the route, they may no longer be in a legitimate position. If they cannot clip the quick draw from here, or if the judge determines that the tallest competitor could not clip the quick draw from here, the position is not legitimate. If they fall from here, even though they have controlled hold 16-17, they should receive a score of 15, as that is the last hold they controlled from a legitimate position. However, if they can clip from here, or if the judge determines that the tallest competitor could have clipped from here, then the position is considered legitimate. If they fall from this position with or without clipping, then their score would be 16, because they controlled hold 16-17 with one hand while in a legitimate position. If a climber controls the last hold but does not clip the final quick draw, they are awarded a score for that hold. For example, if the final hold has a score of 30 and the climber controls the last hold but falls prior to clipping the last quick draw, they are awarded a score of 30. You cannot be given a plus score on the last hold.